welcome to On Air with B&B.
I'm Brittany.
And I'm Bethany, and we are two mental health therapists with real talk and mental health tips that matter. So today we are going to be talking about how to bounce back from setbacks.
Yes.
Setbacks happen to everyone. I don't care who you are. I don't care how perfect you are.
Or how perfect you think you are.
Right, but they happen to everyone. Small, medium, big
setbacks.
Right. They can happen several times.
A day,
a week, a month, a year.
Our week.
Yeah, I feel like we've had a week. So that's why we kind of thought this video today would be really fitting. We just kind of wanted to help everyone like normalize the situation, realize it happens to everyone.
Yeah.
And what can we do in those situations?
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone is challenged in different ways, whether it is through work,
right,
school,
relationships,
parenting, whatever it is, and
sports,
especially these kids nowadays, they're all training to be Olympians.
Right.
And I think that it's just really good to be able to recognize that we're having a setback. That's all that this is. How can I acknowledge that, sit with those feelings, be in the moment, and then move forward? Because I think when we don't move forward and focus on the growth that can take place from setbacks, that's when we get stuck and discouraged and kind of tend to throw in the towel.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wanted to talk about a personal setback that my husband and I had with our daughter, just to give an example. We sleep trained when she was 3 months old. So because we both had to work full time, and I'm like, this kid has got to sleep in her room. I have to get my sleep. I have to be present for my clients the next day.
Yeah.
And we did a really great job. We were really proud of ourselves. She slept in her bed every night, would go to bed every night. And then when she was about 5 years old, we sold our house and we moved into a rental. And this was around 2021. So everybody can remember, there were no rentals available. We, by the grace of God, got one, but it was much smaller than what we needed because my parents were also moving in with us because they also sold their house. So we needed one that accommodated 5 people. We got a 3-bedroom, which it did accommodate us, but it was still just a lot. A lot of people in a very small space. And we were there a lot longer than we thought we were going to be there. It took almost 2 years to build our house. And so we just kind of started letting our daughter basically sleep wherever she would fall asleep, because I was working 2 jobs. My husband was working crazy hours. My parents were there. She was in school. And we were just as long as everyone gets sleep, that's all that matters. So she would sleep in bed with us a lot. And she was much smaller then. And then we finally moved into our new home. And then it was okay, now, you have your own room and this and that. And it was as if we never sleep trained. She never slept in her own bed before. And I remember just feeling so discouraged, defeated. And I have to start all over. It was really, really tough. So that personally for me and my husband was a huge setback for us. And what helped in that moment was just kind of remembering the advice that I give my clients is I always say, go back to the basics. When behaviors reoccur or pop up due to big change, because that's typically some things. It's some setbacks just happen and they're out of our control, and some are out of our control, but due to just
external factors,
a lot of change. And so we went back to the basics and kind of sleep trained, even though she was 7 at this point, just in a different way. And I can safely, confidently say that she now goes to bed in her own room every single night. She does occasionally ask to sleep in my bed still, like just because she wants to, like on a weekend night or something. But if I say no, she's like, okay, and then like goes to her room. Whereas when we first moved into the home, it was, I can't, you know, as if she had never slept in her bed.
Right.
So that's just like one example. We were talking, what are some bigger or common examples that I think you've heard?
Yeah. Like through my clients, I think, you know, maybe even having like a difficult conversation with your child. You know, just according to, you know, if you like look at the statistics, divorce rates are pretty high, statistically speaking.
Things are stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really
hard on relationships.
Absolutely. And so, you know, I've had parents in the past, just in the years of working with children and adolescents who are like, hey, Brett, like, how do we navigate this conversation? And so we'll have like a parent session. Sometimes we'll have a family session to kind of make it very supporting, and somewhat comfortable, even though it is a really uncomfortable topic, right? It's hard to tell a child or your children that, like, you know, mommy and daddy, or that daddy and mommy are kind of like having some space from each other, and that this has nothing to do with you as the child or adolescent in the room. Because developmentally, it's kind of like, well, why? Right? We have to kind of recall, and especially depending on like where the children is at developmentally, cognitively, looking at their like age, if you will, and where they meet within that like life stage. Most children and adolescents, especially through like 6 to 12, they're in this like curiosity phase. And so they're like, but why? Right? And it kind of induces a lot of feelings and emotions. And change in any capacity is really hard, but change that can impact what the rest of your future would look like, especially as like a little one, could be even harder.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so I think having those difficult conversations with a child is really imperative, even though it's hard, and that can produce like some setbacks in its own way. Right? So what do I mean by that? So if a child is informed, or if children are informed, like, hey, parents are separating, or parents are getting a divorce, or things of that nature, it's more about, you know, their dynamic as the child. Life as they know it is completely going to change, because typically what this looks like is like mom and dad either like change locations.
I
right?
think that is one of the biggest, with my clients, one of the biggest reasons that I see setbacks with my kiddos is because they now have to go to 2 different homes. They have 2 different sets of things. They don't have both parents every single night tucking them into bed or whatever the routine was. You know, it's just like what, you know, and that is just really hard on them, the 2 different locations.
Right, absolutely. And so even though in that moment, short term, or even for like months or like a year or 2 years, like following that really hard conversation that you have with that child or children collectively, overall, they can build resilience. Right? And just teaching your children or your child that like things do happen, and in preparation, like they have no control. Right? A relationship has nothing to do with the child. Us as adults, we can have this conversation all day long, right? Because we understand that a relationship has nothing to do with the children, right? Regardless of like where that stands. But unfortunately, children do take it very personally. And they take it personally for, like I said, a numerous amount of reasons, not just because of the curiosity as to like, well, why is this happening? There's a lot of unintentional blame or guilt, that kind of like changes, you know, their narrative, if you will. There's a lot of like remorse too, right? There could be a lot of disappointment. It can induce a lot of feelings and emotions, which feelings and emotions sometimes, if we don't, kind of like what Bethany was saying earlier, like if we don't persevere and overcome those feelings and emotions, unfortunately, it can keep us in this like clouded space almost, right? So I think, kind of framing it in the sense of like, we can't protect our children from the world. We can only prepare them. I like that saying a lot, and I fall back on it a lot and tell my parents that often in sessions. And what does that mean? Like that saying, it's just basically saying, like, as a parent or a guardian or a caregiver in any capacity, we can't always protect, but we can prepare by teaching them the skills, by helping them be resilient, by reframing thoughts,
Yeah.
right? This kind of ties into like growth mindset and fixed mindset, right?
Right.
So growth mindset is kind of like, oh, like I'm going to choose to view this as like, even though it's hard and it feels really bad, I'm brave and I'm strong. You sprinkle in like a little positive words of affirmations. I love that approach. But also recognizing too, like things are going to happen, and we do have to accept it for what it is, and we can overcome it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we can look at the positives.
What can we learn from this situation?
No,
What can we take
absolutely.
away? Even when experiences
Mm-hmm.
are negative, maybe a majority of it is negative, and you choose like, okay, like I have to do something different. After you make that decision, I think a good tip is to just maybe think to yourself, like, that was negative. I didn't like it. I'm not going to do it again. But what did I take away
What
from
did I
it?
learn?
What did I learn from it? How did that help me for the next step of my life or the next decision I make?
Yeah.
Like, could I have handled that differently? Or did I like how I handled that? And I'm going to do that again. Like, there's going to be good things and bad things that you can reflect back on that help you continue to grow.
Absolutely.
Even though it felt like such a negative experience.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like really imperative to kind of like look at how we are choosing to view whatever the situation or circumstances are, right? So growth mindset, again, it's very like positive. You are learning from the setbacks rather than the fixed mindset, which is you're allowing the setback to define you. You're allowing those emotions or negative feelings, like the hard ones, the disappointment, the anger, the frustration, just being upset, the blame, the judgment, almost in any of those capacities. I think it's like fixed mindset is just you're allowing the emotions to like dictate your like kind of like future almost rather than overcoming it.
I have a client who has pandas. And he basically, pandas is where kids their anxiety gets triggered by like an infection.
Yeah.
And this particular client, he's in high school, and he just kept getting sick at the beginning of the school year. And he was just so angry, yelling at everyone, mad at irritable, frustrated, sad, anxious. And we got him some antibiotics and he leveled out. But now we're doing just kind of what we're talking about is like, hey, let's educate. Like, that when you're getting sick, that these feelings, these emotions
exacerbate to get
could and probably will arise. So what do we do when we start feeling sick if we know that that's going to happen? And so that's what we're working on now. And that's like the growth mindset part of it. Like he got bronchitis last week, actually. And he did phenomenally because he knew, I'm probably going to start feeling anxious and depressed and irritable and all the things. So he started using the coping skills before he was even feeling those negative emotions, like to get ahead of it, like to be proactive. Correct. So he did really well because he was ahead of it. And that is the growth part of that really negative situation that happened at the beginning of the year, at the school year, where he was being reactive, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like with any students, regardless of age. You could be a child, you could be a teenager, you could be an adult in college, and maybe you fail like a big test, right? Like for some people that could be a huge setback, especially if you needed that particular grade for like a certification
Some kids need
or
it to keep scholarships
scholarships.
or
Yeah.
to get a scholarship.
Right, absolutely. Or for their GPA, or like a lot of my seniors that are in high school, you know, their grades are really important to them because it's like, oh, I got accepted to this university with the expectation that my GPA stays at this particular
Mm-hmm.
level, right? And so if I fail this test, that means I can get like a C in this particular course, which, you know, decreases my GPA, which also decreases my opportunity to attend this specific college or university, right? And so I think just like looking at these things, it's like, okay, so I failed this test or I failed this certification or something along those lines. It's like, what can I learn from this rather than dwelling on, I just failed, right? Because here's the thing, we fail every single day. I just don't think that we recognize it all the
Mm-hmm.
time. You know, like when I was like doing my makeup this morning, I poked my eyeball when I was trying to put on my eyelashes. No, seriously, like I'm like, what am I doing? Like poking my eyeball. I was like, great. So now I'm gonna look like I have pink eye for the video. But like, you know, for someone like that can be a huge setback, and that can just be like their reason to like lose it at like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday. You know, like
Yeah.
for others, it could be a lot more like serious. Like we're driving to work, and it's like lovely. Like this is another true story. This happened like a couple weeks ago, driving to the office, and then I'm like on the highway and this rock hits my windshield, and I'm like, oh, fantastic. And it's like, thankfully, like I have my car insurance and everything, so I had to call my car insurance, and I had to like have this person replace my windshield in the parking lot where our office is. It was just like one thing after the other, right? Didn't pay anything for it, so it shouldn't have been like a thing. But to me, it was like a setback because it's like
Yeah.
another thing on my plate that I have to worry about or I have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, really frustrating. And then I had to say, you know what, Brittany, like get it together. The world is fine. Like everything is fine. Like, you know, you don't have to come out of pocket for this. So I had to really talk myself through it, kind of circling back to what you were saying earlier, like that reflection piece, right? To kind of like ground us. But even as like a practicing clinician, like we, like myself especially, I don't want to speak for you, but me, I'm guilty of like having these setbacks myself because we're human first. And I think it's really imperative, like how we navigate setbacks can really either allow us to like overcome and allow us to flourish and allow us to have that growth mindset and allow us to be successful and resilient. Or if we have more of a fixed mindset, it really can negatively impact the rest of the day, the rest of the week, impact like the rest of the month. Like it can induce like this like depression like season for us if we really allow it to.
Absolutely.
I have so many clients regardless of age. Like my youngest is like 2.5, and then my oldest is like she's in her 50s. And so it's like, regardless of age, I see it all the time. If we decide to allow our setbacks to be viewed as like a challenge or like a negative thing rather than trying to find the positive out of it, we could stay stuck for such a
Yeah,
long time.
I'm thinking like as you're speaking, I'm thinking of another client of mine who we've had a lot of clients this month, just something's in the air.
Mm-hmm.
But one in particular, he he went back to college about a year ago. He did really, really well in his last semester, like straight A's, was gaining self-confidence with like socially, did really, really well. Christmas break came. When he came back from Christmas break, all of a sudden he started having panic attacks and just really having a hard time. And he withdrew from his classes like out of nowhere. And I, was like, what is going on? Like, what, like, talk to me. And he's been a client of mine for a long time. So I know him pretty well. And I know him well enough to know that if all of this is going on, it's probably a medication issue with him because he's really good. Typically, he's been very consistent for a while.
Yeah.
So instead of focusing on like, okay, we have to get you back in school right away and whatever, I said, you know what? It's just one semester.
Yeah.
College isn't going anywhere. If you want to go back, we can address that in the future. But right now, we need to address like what's going on internally with you because we know from what we've learned in the past that this is probably a medication thing. He had to go to see his psychiatrist. He went that week. She changed something. It wasn't helping. He went the next week. She changed something. It helped immensely. Now, 3 weeks later, he's completely back to normal. And yes, he, has these marks on his transcript, for withdrawing after the ad drop week. But if he chose to look at it as like, I'm just going to like give up and never do anything with my life because I withdrew, then okay, then that's how it will go. But what we're working on in therapy is looking at it as more of like an obstacle and a roadblock that we can remove. And then, we're going to use this time to do other things that maybe we didn't have time for because he was in school. Right. And then when school comes back around, maybe revisiting if we want to return.
Right.
And so sometimes these setbacks feel like, man, that really ended things for me, but maybe it's just you needed that break and you didn't know that you needed it, or you needed to reset. You needed to go back to the basics because you got in like a lot, like me and my husband, we use a lot of behavioral plans with our daughter. And we are very, very, very consistent. Good. And it goes really, really, really well. And then we fall off because things get busy and we don't need it as much because the behaviors are good. And then we have to, like I said, go back to the basics and just pull it out and start again. And so it's like a reset, and that's okay.
Right.
That's okay. And maybe the behaviors are what's showing us, hey, get back to the behavior plan, you know?
Absolutely. I think it's really, when you were saying that, like I have a personal story that I can share that piggybacks off of your client that you were just describing. So like, when I was in school, funny story. Okay. So, and I've been in school for years. So anyway.
That's why I was just thinking to myself,
what time? What are we talking? Which degree, right?
When?
So actually, funny story. So this happened when I was in my master's program. So many, many moons ago. No, I'm just kidding. But when I was in my master's program, studying to be a mental health counselor and becoming a therapist, I was going through a personal challenge, which I'm comfortable disclosing and sharing. I was going through like a breakup with my fiance. And that was really, really hard for me. And I was like failing. And keep in mind, I have anxiety. I have a lot of perfectionist-like tendencies. Like Bethany can attest to that. She's known me for many, many, many years. And so it's something that I'm working on with my own therapist, y'all. So it's okay. But sidetrack back to like the story. I think, when I was getting my master's, I recognized like, okay, like I'm in a really bad place. So I was going through like a huge breakup, and then also simultaneously, like I had a lot of health, remember? I had a lot of health issues. Like I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and then I had to have surgery. Like it was a lot of things going on.
I think also you had lost at the time a couple of family members due to COVID, correct?
3. This was all in 2020.
Yeah.
See, look at you. That's my best friend, y'all. So, yeah. Okay. But yes, 2020, and I lost 3 family members. I went through a breakup. It was just a lot, right? And then my health, like all the things, the world was like ending as I knew it. Like, let's be frank, like so much was going on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I decided to take a whole year off. I took off like 3 semesters because I needed to really pour into myself. I had to go back into counseling. I had to really go back to the basics. I had to remind myself of my worth and that I'm worthy and that I'm capable and that I am strong and that all of these things are beyond my control. I can't stay in an unhealthy relationship, nor can I, bring someone back to life. And I can't fix myself medically on my own independently. Like these things all take time. Like healing takes time. And I had to learn that. And I took a whole year off, and now I'm sitting here and like, I have a doctorate degree, y'all. Doctorate Ashy, So like, it is okay to take breaks. I think setbacks can provide that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we just need, I tell my clients often, you'll get there if you want to get there. it just doesn't always happen as you maybe like had planned it or envisioned it, and you just have to take a different route.
And that's okay.
You know, and that's okay. Maybe that's the way it was supposed to happen for you to become the best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
Maybe you needed more time or more experiences. My journey wasn't pristine either, getting to where I am today. And I remember when I was younger feeling like looking at like my peers and thinking, you know, oh, I wish I had done it like that, or they're ahead of me or whatever. But actually now, you know, I'm very happy with where I'm at and the way that I went. And, you know, and that wouldn't have happened had I mean, maybe it would have, but it just, I feel like sometimes we need the setbacks to learn and grow from. Because there's always a lesson in the setbacks. Whether the setbacks be a sports injury and we feel like, man, we're out for the whole season. Like, you know, what are we going to do now? We're not going to get that scholarship into college, or we're not going to, you know, make the team this year, but maybe the better opportunity is the team next year. Right. Maybe you needed an extra year for maturity. Who knows? And I think it's okay. I want to be very clear that it's okay to feel sorry for yourself.
Oh yeah.
When it happens. I just want to encourage people to then look at it as, how can I learn from this? How can I move forward?
How can I grow?
Right. But it's definitely okay to pout and feel sorry for yourselves in that moment.
Absolutely.
You know, because that moment is crappy.
And I always say this too, like, if we don't sit with our feelings, what are we doing? We're pushing them to the side.
Yeah.
We're suppressing them. When we suppress our feelings and emotions, then we internalize them. And then when we internalize our feelings and emotions, they show up in a different capacity. They show up even more so when you least expect it. It's like, you know, you're making waffles and then you burn them, and then that's when you like lose it and end up in some type of like almost crisis situation because you didn't process something that happened like 3 days ago, and unintentionally or subconsciously you're still holding on to that.
Yeah.
Right?
No, absolutely. Like, I'm going to be very, very, very honest right now.
Yeah.
We almost didn't make this video today.
True story.
Because we're just going through a lot at the office and everything. And this morning I was trying to make our coffee, and Brittany likes iced coffee and I like hot coffee. And I put ice in the cup and then didn't hit over ice and made hot coffee.
First world problems.
And but I'm like, wow, this is where my mind is at. Yeah. And Brittany said to me, hey, if you don't want to film today and you know, you just want to go have coffee outside on the porch, by all means we can do that. And I said, no, I'm okay. I just need to like, you know, get it together. But I knew that she meant that. And if I really needed to, I totally would have and not made the video, because you need to know when to take a knee, is what I call it in my sessions.
No, absolutely. Rest is so productive. And rest is not, even though I love a good nap, girl, a midday nap. Oh my God, are we kidding?
I haven't taken one but in a minute.
Well, I have no kids, so your girl, I'll nap for you. But no, like you know, rest is not just sleeping or napping. Okay, like rest is just existing very intentionally without doing. Right. So it could just be journaling, and it could just be, you know, sometimes being a couch potato, like that is okay. Right. But also not staying in that place for too long, allowing yourself the opportunity to take a break or to take a pause, recognizing what you need in that moment to push through in a very safe, you know, protective manner, because we don't want to like push through when we're like on empty.
No, and I think it's really important to also ask for help.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
A lot of people, you know, we're so, especially if you're, you know, type A, you know, or you're just like, have that personality where you're just always doing the planning and the scheduling and all, you know, the things, you forget that it's okay to like phone a friend, you know, and say, hey, I really need your help today. Can you pick up my kids so that I can do this. Like I'm having a hard week. I'm having a hard time. Or asking, my husband and I, we have, just not by rules, but like our roles in the house of like what we take care of.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, I'm like, hey, can you do this for me today? Because I have too much on my plate, and it's okay to like say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or even ask your child if they're old enough, I mean, mine's not really like, she doesn't love helping, I'm not gonna lie, but I'll say to her, like, I really need it like today, I could really use it, and when I say that to her, then she's like, oh, because I don't really ask her too often.
Right.
So
no, I think it's important to recognize those things. I do want to like normalize that setbacks are universal,
mm-hmm.
and that setbacks happen quite often, quite frequently, and that it's not a reflection on like your abilities or lack of abilities, right? It's just they're temporary. It's really interesting when you look at all of the setbacks that you have overcame in any type of capacity in your life.
Yeah, that's a really good way to, cope and move forward too. Is, has something like this happened to me before? How did I get through it before?
Mm-hmm.
What did I do then?
Right. And if it was positive,
yeah,
great. We've got kind of like the outline of what to do in this moment. And if it wasn't so positive, it's like, what can I do differently?
mm-hmm.
And again, that's like a part of growing. That is a part of life as we know it, right? Like setbacks are expected to happen. And majority of the time, they're really out of our control.
Yeah.
Right. And setbacks sometimes can't be fixed, so to speak, instantaneously. We have to like learn to be okay with that as people, especially like those people like me, the type A perfectionist individuals who are like, everything has to be like this, and this, and this, right? But no, and I also think it's important too to like just to distinguish and to recognize that like temporary obstacles are not permanent. Like,
right.
They're not going to be forever, even if it feels like it in the moment.
Right. And it does usually feel like it in the moment, to be completely honest.
Absolutely. Like the things that we were talking about earlier, let's talk about it. Because like divorce, someone can argue like, well, that is permanent. Yeah, the idea of divorce, but not how you're feeling about it.
Right.
Right. Medical conditions, like even when I had like my surgeries, and I still have my things to this day that I have to like navigate and work through and like check on and everything of that nature. But everyone has something,
mm-hmm.
right? There is no idea or expectation of perfection. And I think what we need to recognize is that setbacks are beyond our control and that they do happen. But how can we make the most out of it?
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, anything else?
Nothing that I can think of.
Yeah. Well, this was fun. I'm really glad that we did this.
I am too, even though I was a hot mess this morning.
No, it's both of us. But hey, all I heard was we're hot, so it's okay. So. Have on my concealer, can I? But anyway, in all seriousness, thank you guys so much for tuning in and hanging out with us on Air with B&B. Remember that your mental health does matter. Thank you just for supporting us. I just want to take that moment. It's been a while since we recorded and things of that nature, so it's nice to be back.
It is nice to be back.
We missed you guys. So stay tuned and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Ciao.
I'm looking for somebody